May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts bring us closer to beloved community, and may it be so. Is anyone else here afraid of swimming in open water, like out in the middle of a lake? Yeah. I didn't know I was. I found out. Love swimming at the beach, love swimming at the pool, but boy did I freak out the first time I swam in the middle of a lake. There's no black line to follow in your lap swimming lane, right? You look down with your goggles, you see nothing. It's too dark, it's too murky. I think, I don't mean to speak for everyone, but for myself, I don't like open water swimming because, it's not because I'm afraid of sharks, I'm not afraid of drowning, it's that I can't see the bottom, I can't feel the bottom. In the pool, I know the limits of the water. I can see and feel the floor and the walls. But in that lake, the boundaries are gone, the edges are gone, and I'm left to trust that I'm okay. When you move from that space where you have that illusion of control to a space where you don't know where the edges are, you might also freak out. I think my fear of the open water is calmed when I'm in a boat, because the boat gives me a sense of shelter and safety, like this thing was built to carry me across this. And that's why I don't want any boat that I'm in to be rocking. I don't want to get tossed out to the open water. Do you remember that one kid in the boat who would try and rock the boat? Yeah, that kid, he's the worst, yeah? The question we're thinking about today is, when should you rock a boat? This is a photo. It's a tragic photo. It's the Italian cruise ship Costa Concordia, which ran aground in 2012. This boat was not serving everyone equally well in this photo. I would rather be on the port side, up in the sky, than the starboard side, which is underwater. Agreed? Okay. All right. So who on the port side wants to swap with the starboard side? I mean, this boat may be stably aground in this photo. I don't know. Let's suppose it's in an equilibrium on some ground. It is not in equilibrity for all of its passengers, even if it's in an equilibrium. Folks on the starboard side are probably more interested in rocking that boat than the folks on the port side. The folks on the port side may very well be aware, I hope they are, that the boat isn't optimally running. They might lament the fate with sincerity of the folks in starboard. They might curse and condemn the captain for running this boat into ground. They might even wish for a more even-keeled boat. But they can also decide on the port side that this boat is really big. Let's just watch Netflix. You don't know what's at the bottom when you rock the boat. It's just easier to let it be. And so this is where I think about Reverend Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. Right, the negative peace, which is the absence of tension, versus the positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And boy, is that spot on here. Keeping the peace by not rocking the boat is not the same thing as making sure that the boat is seaworthy and that passengers aren't drowning. But let's not solve America's 400-year crisis of racism this morning. I'm still in seminary. Today, let's aim for something less ambitious. Let's say work meetings or city council resolutions or social media posts. We can do that in an hour. Let's ask ourselves 3 questions. How do I respond to others asking for change? How do I ask for change? And who am I helping? So to that first question, how do I respond when someone tries to rock the boat? It's been my lived experience that we don't usually welcome people telling us to change. Let me put it this way. How would you respond if I started a sentence with, you know what you should do is, or this is my favorite variation, your problem is that, right? I've stopped listening if that's the opening line of your sentence, right? Sometimes people ask us to change in really small and inconsequential ways. They might, for example, ask you to load the dishwasher differently than you load it. They might say you should clip your toenails more often. People might say, have you tried yoga? And it doesn't cost us anything, really, but, well, I kind of like loading the dishes the way I load them. Sometimes people ask us to change in substantive ways, like the way we take care of our kids, or that maybe we're endorsing racism at work. And how do you respond to those requests for you to change? That's what we're getting into. So I was at the Y Fitness Center in June when two guys right next to me were rejoicing in the Supreme Court's recent spate of decisions. They were loudly sharing their opinions about the foolishness of affirmative action, the financial ruin of student debt forgiveness, the idiocy of woke culture, who should use which bathroom. Can you imagine yourself in the discussion 2 feet away? There's a tension that arises between, I'm just going to go along to get along, I'm just going to go along to get along, and when you see something, say something, right? There's a tension between being polite and being good. I took a deep breath. I tried to center myself in love. You're in seminary, Steve. And I said, hey, guys, I want to support your First Amendment rights. I'm not here to argue, but I think maybe conversations like that should be somewhere else, and let's just work out here. And dear friends, let me tell you what did not happen. You're right, Steve. Thank you so much for that gentle reminder about public spaces. No, in fact, they used much angrier words that I really shouldn't use at the pulpit here, that their conversation was not my business, that I should leave, or if I didn't like what I was hearing, I should put in earplugs. They did not appreciate that boat being rocked. What I want us to investigate, like really push ourselves on, are the feelings that arise when the boat rocks, when we're asked to change. You don't know what's at the bottom of the lake when the boat starts tipping, and that will spark a feeling. What feelings arise for you when your parenting is asked to change? Or your job performance? Are you sad, angry, frustrated, confused, hurt? It's been my experience that we just skip the part where we name what we're feeling. We just go right into defending our position, right? So I would suggest that we can slow down and recognize that habit. Our habit of wanting to know what's at the bottom of the pool, our habit of preferring the present equilibrium, that negative piece, which is the absence of tension, our habit of not recognizing that our shoes might be dry, not because the boat is running well, but because we're up in the air and someone else is submerged. You following? Right? So when we recognize those patterns, we can become more receptive to change. Also this summer, I was participating in a small group discussion, and we were each asked an assigned person a question. We had to give that person a question. It was my turn to ask a question. I thought I asked a nice one, and the respondent, who is a black woman, said something to the effect of, "That is such a white question, and I'm not going to answer that." What feelings would arise if someone says that to you? Well, I wanted to intellectually dispute that my question wasn't racialized, but I should probably practice what I'm preaching, right? I slowed down. I probed what it was that I was feeling. And dear friends, I felt embarrassed. Embarrassed and disappointed. It's really embarrassing to be called out like that in a small group setting, right? Your sense of pride. And it's disappointing to be someone who actually wrote a book on inclusive pedagogy, gives workshops on how to be less racist, and then gets that feedback, right? It's disappointing in myself. What do? I realized that I needed to let go of centering my rightness, of protecting my sense of equilibrium. I needed to let go of understanding the why. Well, how deep is the lake actually in this spot? What was important was that I change. So I apologized, I acknowledged that I had done harm, and then later she shared with me why that particular question was frustrating for her particularly. And we were both actually better for it. Now, I share both of these stories, the one where I'm sure I'm right and they're wrong, and the one where she's sure she's right and I'm wrong, because I think as you use that we love being right. See, our theology doesn't center around external divine sets of laws. I had to look online to find that one. We center loving actions that foster interdependence, and I'm grateful for that. But we're not right 100% of the time. We can't be. We're never going to be. Make peace with that. It's impossible to be right all the time. I kept trying. It is possible for me to be a published author on pedagogical practices for anti-racism and also get called out for a racist question. It's possible for me to be right that the fitness center isn't the best place to debate social justice issues, and also it's true that it wasn't a conversation I was invited into. It is possible to see yourself as open-minded and also be closed-minded about people who vote differently than you. Ooh, that's another sermon for another day. Okay. Let's also acknowledge that part of our apprehension to boat rocking is that the pushback can be terrifying. We can and should take a big stand in our community as we do for LGBTQIA++ pride and rights. And being publicly in that space means inviting the Westboro Baptists of the world, right? It's not simply conflict avoidance to say that I don't want our sanctuary to be set on fire. That seems like an important thing to avoid if I can. But what I'm trying to say here today is this. My black child doesn't get to avoid racism. My trans children don't get to avoid transphobia. My autistic child doesn't get to avoid ableism. I'm saying that the ability to say this boat is too risky to rock is a privilege. Rocking the boat is not about whether we stay dry. It's about stepping up because someone else is submerged. It's the presence of justice, not the absence of tension. And so that brings us to our second question. How shall I rock this boat? I guess to cut to the point I'm asking, what is the difference between pushing for change and being a crusader that no one asked for? I think there's a curiosity that precedes authentic change. A curiosity. How about, well, I'm curious about why you stack dishes that way. I'd like to learn more. How about, I'm noticing, Steve, that you seem to injure yourself less when you do yoga. What might be going on there? Curiosity invites the listener into mutual problem solving. And I'm not talking about the insulting pandering, I'm wondering why you're so stupid. Everybody knows what you're doing in that case. I'm talking about a genuine willingness to learn and grow together. Curiosity sparks an imagination of alternative ways of being and doing. The great spiritual truth of our seventh principle is that there is no them. There is only us. You can't fight with another point on a circle. You can't fight with another point on a circle. If you take nothing else from this sermon, please try this in the next few days. Notice your desire to change something. It could be the dishes, it could be the universe. Recognize what it is that you want to say. Here's one. Hey everybody, stop leaving the toilet paper roll empty without replacing it. And now reimagine this as a cooperative imagination as a group. How can we set up a system where everyone finds toilet paper when they sit down? Circling up to solve something together may achieve more than just the initial problem that you set out to solve. And that brings us to our last question. Who am I helping? Does this change bring about more equity and opportunity for everyone on the boat? You, for example, might want more support for your team at work to really thrive. You're getting by, but you need just one more person there to thrive. The reality may be that your team is sufficiently staffed to stay afloat, and another team is taking on water. Can you hold both truths, that you're lacking the support needed to thrive, but that others are lacking the support needed to survive? Consider this with any boat that you're on. How would a transgender queer black woman experience your boat? In the staff meeting, in the book club, in the choir. If she doesn't have the same space to thrive that you do, then something in her intersectional oppressions is telling you something about where your boat takes on water. There's a very familiar refrain among those up in the port side, those who are very comfortable with the current equilibrium, and it's always some version of, I think you're being unreasonable. I think you're being unreasonable about women being able to vote, unreasonable about black children attending public schools with my children, unreasonable about making adjustments to prevent climate change, unreasonable about which sexual identities should be married, unreasonable about reparations, unreasonable about bathrooms. Remember, righting the ship doesn't mean sinking the port side. It just means stopping the sinking starboard. The thing about boat rocking is that it pushes us to deal with our conflict issues. You might have been raised to be kind and polite and respectful. And I'm really grateful for that, right? Those are wonderful attributes. But somewhere in there, we have learned that rocking a boat is unkind or impolite or disrespectful. See, I think we tend to merge conflict, respectability, and boat rocking. And I'm here to push back on that. Conflict is disagreement. And here's the thing I didn't want to accept. Conflict is going to happen anytime you're dealing with anyone else. Take a minute, breathe it in, okay? Literally anyone else is going to disagree with you at some point. Screaming, name-calling, hate-posting, violence, those are not inevitable. But disagreement is inevitable. disagreement between you and your dog, between you and your significant other, between you and your coworkers. I cannot tell you the size of the disagreement I had with my 3-year-old yesterday about putting pants on. And I was pretty sure I was right. Conflict is as inescapable a part of life as pooping. It won't do you good to force it. You can't avoid it for very long, and you'll feel so much better when you get it out. Oh, I didn't put that on a slide. Okay. Respectability, by contrast, is just a social construct, and it's variable. You can keep your shoes on when you enter my house, but don't do that in some other houses. There are cultural contexts where silence is a sign of respect, and contexts where silence is a sign of disrespect. One of our tasks as citizens of the world is to ask ourselves how our culturally defined sense of respectability intersects with our concerns about boat rocking. Are we valuing the social perception of respectability over our commitment to help? Boat rocking, that's our third thing. There's conflict, which is like poop. There's respectability and there's boat rocking. Boat rocking is the act of seeing a capsized boat and acting to help. It's seeing that Costa Concordia and pushing. I can see that our employee group is underpaid and suffering from this wage gap. No one else seems to be pushing back. Okay, it's time for me to rock this boat. I can see that our state senate is considering legislation that will discriminate against trans siblings. Okay, it's time for me to rock this boat. Boat rocking is about collective liberation. Ooh, let me say that again. Boat rocking is about collective liberation. And then we all said, boat rocking is about collective liberation. Unitarian Universalists, contrary to Garrison Keillor, are not a rudderless people that just drift wherever the wind takes us morally. We actually have a theological rudder that guides us. Love. Love will guide us. The activist and writer Adrienne Marie Brown writes that change is coming. What do we need to imagine to be prepared for it? If we center love, if we act to right the ship because we love one another and we can circle around for our collective freedom, we don't have to fear the unseeable bottom of the water because we can sail together. We can let go of our need to prize respectability and moderation. Because look, love is a lot of things, but love is rarely described as moderate. It will be hard, we know. The road will be muddy and rough. But we'll get there. Heaven knows how we'll get there, but we know we will. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? I'm going to teach you a song. It goes like this. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Keep going. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? You got it? Change is coming. What do we need? I'm going to teach you all this part. Change. 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 What do we change? Change. 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 Change is come. We get something really cool. What do we need? Here we go. I know. Change. From brokenness I'm whole. I know. Change. What? From brokenness I'm whole. I know. Change. From brokenness I'm whole. I know. Let's bring it back to the melody. Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? May it be so. Thank you.